It is estimated today that Vietnam has lost 70% of its moist forests. More Montagnard lands are being confiscated to make way for coffee plantations.
When I was a young girl going to kindergarten, I had to speak Vietnamese and learn Vietnamese songs, and I was slapped by my teacher because I didn't know how to sing Vietnamese songs because that was not my language. I speak a totally different language when I'm at home, and so they're just really turning me around into a different person. When a student gets up to 8th or 9th grade, there's always a difficulty for trying to get to a higher level of education, because when you're in a different religion and when you're in a different background, or when you have a father that is in the full road trying to fight for freedom, you are not allowed to go up into a higher education just because they don't want you to know anything. What they do is they line the kids up and then they'll ask them what kind of religion they are. And if they're in a religion that they're not accepted, like a Christian, like a Protestant or something, they'll have to find a way to drop the kid. Like they'll have to tax them more, they have to let them pay more money, and they're already poor. They're already poor. They have no money to pay for the government or for the school, so they have to drop out, like one of my friends did.
The European Parliament passed a resolution condemning Vietnam's repression of religious freedom and persecution of religious leaders and Montagnards.
I remember that one of the policemen arrested our preacher and handcuffed him, hit him with this, I think it was bamboo tree, hit him with that, and they hit right in front of my eye. I can see my own eye. And there's a lot of children that they can see that, and I think that when I think about that, it's kind of upsetting me, and it's very sad things to remember it, you know.
Human Rights Watch reported Montagnard churches being burned by Vietnamese authorities and the torture of Montagnards with electric prods. In May 2001, the International Commission for Religious Freedom called for the cancellation of US funding for World Bank and International Monetary Funds earmarked for Vietnam.
When I was 12 years old, I go to the jungle to have fight for my people, because the Vietnamese government arrest my people, hurt my family, and destroy our culture. For us, the Vietnam War never ended. We fight many battles, and for 17 years, we have no contact with outside. The last battle in 1991, when the Vietnamese attacked us in Cambodia jungle.
92, this Montagnard army was discovered by the United Nations, living in remote Mondulkiri. And a friend of mine, Nate Thayer, had heard about it and was working on the story, and he invited me to go along, and we went up to northern Cambodia and convinced the Uruguayan colonel up there to let us fly in with the UN, because they were negotiating with the Montagnards for their surrender. They'd been waging technically a war against Vietnam since '75. I was told at the time that when they fled Vietnam in '75, there might have been as many as 10,000 who had crossed the border into Cambodia. When we got up there were around 400 men, women, and children who'd been living in a very wild jungle area, and had been arranging forays back and forth into Vietnam, and they had a fair number of weapons with them, and they were living off the land, growing some food. They had, you know, bamboo shelters, and they had churches set up in the jungle made out of bamboo, and apparently they would, in order to avoid being identified by either the Cambodian authorities or the Vietnamese, they moved their camps regularly So these were pretty simple makeshift huts that they were living in. Eventually they surrendered their weapons, and then the U.S. facilitated their movement to America, where they have now settled.
Once in America, they joined up with those who had arrived earlier and settled in the vicinity of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the home base of their former battle comrades, the elite special forces.
That's why our people, the first time they come over here, they want to go to North Carolina, because that's the home base of the U.S. Special Forces. We really respect them, and we really appreciate their help during the war. And also right now, we really ask them to help us to fight for our rights. It's not to fight the war, but just to have the right to live, or the right to coexist with the Vietnamese people over there, because right now our people has been oppressed.
My primary role is human rights advocacy. We've lobbied various governments, the United Nations, the US State Department, NGOs around the world, and human rights organizations as to the plight these people are facing in Vietnam. Senate side, please.
In November 2000, Kok Kosor approached the office of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in Washington, D.C. The Montagnard Foundation presented a report outlining their serious concerns with the Vietnamese government's implementation of the UN sterilization program.
When Kok Kosor first showed me a list of 1,000 Montagnard women who had been sterilized, some had been forced, coerced, others bribed or threatened with fines, I knew that we had to look into this immediately.
Phùng nia mày chàng cơ khát chàng nạc có giờ ta nhô chàng bê rai mày nhô chàng mày amo lọ tùy blah vịt nhô grab rồi kanokana yuan trốt mày nào có bên hòng tí nhô mừng trúc mây tổ clay nhô khát chàng nạc
kanukana plu play mây chàng re chàng na halai re kanyu bre jin da tu rabo jin yuan
wa lat nam môi wa lat khai badam nam môi bao chen ring chen nhặt pe người thay nghề bạ về ring ô.
Another lawyer and myself went to Geneva and interviewed the senior external relations officer of the United Nations Population Fund. He confirmed that the UN and World Bank fund the sterilization programs through the family planning programs in Vietnam. He also confirmed that the UN procedures regarding these policies are not always implemented correctly in Vietnam.
Vì bằng đặc môi play ngon tự rang bờ chàng re sang na thun harabo dwara pan tu dwara pan ploju.